Ask Reddit. Women of Reddit, what's your cringy nice guy story? When I was in college, there was this guy that hung around my friend group. No one actually knew which one of us brought him in, so maybe he just decided to crash, who knows. But he was creepy. He hit on all the girls in the group aggressively and whined daily about how we should just give him a chance to show us how a lady should be treated. We usually just rolled our eyes, although a few of the guys took him aside on separate occasions and told him to knock it off. He also went way over the top in a lot of ways. He'd bring the girls flowers or memorize their favorite candy/soda/snacks and present them as a token of his great affection. Yep, he called it that. He had a bad habit of insisting, like legit would not take no for an answer, on walking the women wherever we needed to go. Myself and my best friend at the time both told him his behavior was creepy. There were 3 women in the core group, and 5 others who were close enough that they'd show up at LAN parties or whatever we were doing. He asked every single one of us out at least 50 times. Every single time we said no, he'd go off on this awful tirade about how women didn't want nice guys, and how we should just be open to the possibility of him being the love of our lives. It did not matter how many times we told him we were not interested, not attracted, or in relationships. Sophomore year, a new girl joined the group. For whatever reason, she liked our nice guy. A lot. Weird. But he wasn't into her at all. A few of us started using his own BS rhetoric against him when he began whining about her not leaving him alone. It was pretty gross. I can smell the sweaty fedora and Doritos dust from here. Guy I'd hung out with a few times offered to come feed my cat for the weekend I was away. We agreed on how much I'd pay him. When I got home I saw that he left the money on the counter. I texted to thank him and asked when I can pick up my key. He basically demanded sex since he hadn't taken the money and he wanted sex instead. I said I'm not a whore and he should have just taken the $20 as agreed. Then he refused to give back my key and said he would sell it on Craigslist with my address and photos of me. I informed him that I'd screenshotted the conversation and sent it to several friends, and if anything happened to me they would show the convo to the police, and that I didn't think a little dancer boy would fare well in prison. He then said that threatening to have me raped was just a joke. Lamau the reversal, holy shit. He wanted to impress upon me what a good guy he was, and he was also too scared to ask me out like a normal person. He killed 2 birds with 1 stone by having his split personality tell me it really wanted to kill me, but nice guy was bravely holding it back because he liked me so much. Obviously I fell head over heels immediately. And that psychotic approach didn't work? How? It worked, dude. She fell head over heels for him. Didn't you read? A guy tried to take my phone and use it to text my then BF that we were over. When confronted, nice guy said my BF didn't treat me right, or else we wouldn't be doing long distance. This was during college, and he was 1.5 hours away by train. When I obviously got mad, he called me a beach, a whore, and an idiot for not realizing what I had in front of me. Cue 3 days of emo/angsty Facebook statuses with me tagged in them. I block him. He cries about why we aren't friends anymore. I asked him to give me some time and we can try again. 1.5 days later, dick pic. When I didn't respond to that, he sent me a long, handwritten letter about how perfect my body and how he would treat me like a princess, especially in bed. I really want to know what goes through a guy's head when he thinks, we haven't talked in a couple of days. I better show her my dick. That will get her talking. The logical jump there just escapes me. This is long. Bear with me. My parents had friends who had a son considerably older than me, as in like 13 years older. However, when I reached puberty he took a liking to me. My mother loved his family and thought he was so handsome, so she always tried to make us hang out in hopes it would kindle something. Mind you, I was like 16 when he was 29. My mom somehow saw nothing wrong with this. Anyhow, nothing ever happened and I got a boyfriend until I was 23, at which time we broke up. This is when Mr. Nice Guy swooped in, showing up at my house with flowers and gifts unannounced. I never gave him my address. He asked my mom. Then he would notice I posted I had a cold on Facebook and would show up with cold medicine and soup. Which would be nice if I had any interest in him, but I didn't. He would look where I checked into on Facebook and coincidentally just be there. I felt bad being like, dude, stop, cause my mom invited him to every family function and I didn't want to make things weird. It hit the pinnacle when he got a job where I worked just to be closer to me and he told everyone we were dating. Spoiler alert, we weren't. I flipped out on him and told him he was creepy and that after all these years he never took the hint after me never answering his calls/texts or taking him up on his relentless attempts to take me out to dinner. I quit my job and moved and blocked him on everything and had a firm conversation with my mom about keeping him away from me. She was upset and made excuses for him but ultimately obliged. Years later I'm now married with a baby and he still relentlessly pursues me if he sees me in public. What the actual F is wrong with your mother? If a 29-year-old had come around hitting on me at 16, my mother would have lost her shit. I have a client who hits on me. He knows I am married because he mentions it. He also lashes out verbally if I say things he doesn't like, which is truly scary. He is 55 plus, never moved out of his parents' house, and spends his mom's money for everything. She is in her 80s and works 2 jobs to pay for his toys. One day, she came in with him to see if there was anything we could do to get his bills lower since she is struggling, and he started lashing out at her. Shut the F up. She isn't talking to you. And you're stupid. Shut up. I felt honestly worried for his mom. Anyway, he would purposely let his insurance lapse so he would have an excuse to come in and sign a form so he could talk to me. He was very blatant about it as well. He always threw his mom under the bus for not paying his bills but then would talk about how he bought this or that and then would say I know I should have paid that insurance, but I couldn't pass up a chance to come say hi to you. One time, he said he couldn't come in until Saturday to sign the form and asked if I could make arrangements to be there on the weekend instead. I told him we were closed. My co-worker, an elderly man of 60 plus, said he would be here if I had the forms ready. The guy got angry and said he wanted me to be here on Saturday, alone, and that I should cancel my plans and be here no matter what. My mind got stuck on the alone part and I told him I couldn't do it but that I would be back on Monday, with a full staff, just in case. One day, he called to use his mom's credit card to pay his bill. I didn't answer the phone right away because I had another client with me. He keeps calling over and over and over again. Finally, after the client left, I picked up the phone and he started yelling at me. I asked him why he was so upset and he said I couldn't get you on the phone to pay my bill so I used the money to buy baseball cards. This is your fault. Now I cannot pay my insurance. Then slammed the phone down on me. Just this past month, his vehicle broke down, so he had to go buy another one. His mom went with him. He had insufficient credit, so his mom had to buy it under her name. I told them I could not add the vehicle to the policy since the vehicle was not titled to him. We would have to cancel the policy and she would need to put it on her insurance plan, which was with a different agency. Finally, I was free. Until he came in last week to sign the cancellation form, a document that is time-stamped. When he arrived and I didn't have the form already printed out, he went off on me right there. You should have had this form ready. And claimed I was being incompetent. I told him it was a time-stamped form and that the document is not generated until the client is sitting in front of me and ready to cancel because it has to be signed that moment. He signed the form and stomped off. I felt relief that I wouldn't have to deal with him anymore until he came back in the door and said, BTW, let me know when you break it off with your husband. I might have to come back and get insurance from you again. I let me husband know everything, just in case. He knows I'm a rape victim and that I freeze up around this guy because he scares the shit out of me. TL, doctor, client of mine blames women for everything, hits on me, and tries to catch me in my office alone. Not a woman, but I get mistaken for one enough. Most recently, the guy in the bar who grabbed my hand and left saliva on it as he graciously kissed it, then asked, is she yours? To my friend. Okay, I'm sorry, this is not funny, but I laughed. Looking back, it's hysterical. He thought he was smooth but he was actually very drunk so it came out more like a shares. I'd give this as a nice guy or just really freaking annoying but a guy I know is hopelessly in love. He knows I'm not single. Tells me things all the time like in another realm. We'd be together. We'd make beautiful children. Don't you think we make beautiful children? And I just answer like And then when he sees me, he'll start saying all these love quotes from books he's read. He's made lewd comments as I've bent over before. He also whines that I never message/talk to him. He's some guy at my school but I hardly see him so I'm not worried at all. It's just really damn annoying. Oh dear. This could also be worst first date story, but it definitely is my cringy nice guy story. A waiter at a restaurant left his number on my bill and asked me on a date. I was single and agreed because we had mutual friends who vouched for him and he seemed nice. Night of the date, he shows up to my house absurdly overdressed. There was a vest involved, with a single rose that he presented to me. He took me to a basketball game, and the second I sat down the stranger to my left just says, oh, you must be L. We've heard so much about you. Turns out the two people sitting to my left were not strangers but in fact his mother and father. We then go to dinner. He turns white as a ghost and excuses himself to the restroom for maybe 30 minutes. At this point I start to worry and get the check. He then comes back looking incredibly unwell and I say, "Clearly you're ill, don't worry about taking me home, I'll grab a cab." He wasn't having it and insisted on taking me home because he had another surprise planned for me. There's a road that has famous views where I live, and he took the road to one of the lookout points, parked the car, and turned on Cheek to Cheek by Frank Sinatra. He got out and asked me to dance with him, and I said we should just look at the view, and then he proceeded to vomit absolutely everywhere. I shrieked and jumped back into the car to avoid him vomiting all over me. He takes me home and then calls me an hour later to tell me it was the best night of his life. Edit to tell the end of the story, which is that I tried to tell him I wasn't interested but he wouldn't take no for an answer, claimed I would never find anyone who treated women like queens the way he did, said I would never find anyone more chivalrous, and dropped off a letter at my home in the middle of the night that contained the most horrible things anyone has ever said to me. He also had a major affinity for three-piece suits and pork pie hats. Fun times.